All right. I'm waiting to get the notification. Got everything here. All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's episode of NASCAR by the Numbers. You got the crazy man over here, Motor Minister Armany. No Will tonight. The man's on his honeymoon. Congratulations to him and Susie on their wedding.
Yes, congratulations, Will.
So joining us tonight, we got a special guest, first time on the show, and hopefully not the last. We got our boy, Johnny on the track. Johnny, introduce yourself, my man.
What's going on, Armany? You and I have spoke before. You're actually on my own show that I do every Friday. It's called Johnny on the Track. I go by at Jot Podcast. If you guys want to give me a follow on Twitter. Been doing Johnny on the Track. It's a little different than this show, but it's more of like a guest-oriented show. So we have guests on each week, and so that's how Armany and I have met. Had Armany as a guest. Well, probably like over a month ago now. I was checking back at that, which is crazy because it feels like just last week you and I spoke. I mean, we keep in contact via Twitter, but yeah, man, I'm just excited to be on the show and grateful for the opportunity. This is a show I've told you that I've watched for a while now, so getting the chance to go back and forth with you for an hour is going to be good. That's for sure.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, I was on his show about maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah,
great content. This guy, if you don't know him already, go give him a follow. Go check out his show. He's moving up, man. This is a really good show right here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really do.
So here's the menu tonight. We got our Martinsville review. We're going to talk about, what went on in the race, the rain. Hamlin, Truex obviously got the win. Then we're going to take a look at the championship preview, who we're starting to see, as we roll into the summer portion of the season. I think we're finally starting to see who are going to be our championship favorites and obviously the playoff picture. At least in my opinion, I think it's basically already set for the most part, but we're not really going to be talking about the whole playoff picture. Then we'll preview Richmond, and then we're going to go into our topic of the night. Top 3 tracks will turn into short tracks. So let's get started. So Martinsville happened, so we'll give you a rundown of the finishing order. Mark Truex Jr. obviously gets the win, only leads the final 20 laps of the race, drives down Denny Hamlin, who dominated the night, leading 276 laps. I know he didn't win stage 1 and stage 2. That went to Ryan Blaney. We'll talk about him in a second. But yeah, what did you think of the race?
Yeah, I mean, so to be honest, so I saw on Twitter 80% something by Jeff Gluck. It 80% thought this was a good race and a great race, which actually is the highest of the season so far, which kind of shocked me because I thought it was a good race. Obviously at the end, Truex and Chase, came out and chased down Denny. So we had a good finish. Blaney had a great car, but it was a little bit of a caution fest. I mean, it really was. We can mention Cody Ware and some of the troubles he had, but look, it was a good race. It was a good finish, but it was definitely a little longer than I thought it should have been. I don't know what you think of that, but how about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree for what you said for the most part. That instance where, there's a caution every time there's a restart, then the race starts feeling sloppy.
Yeah.
You kind of start questioning, what the hell is going on? These guys can't go for at least 10, 15 laps. So it does get kind of annoying. Thankfully, the cautions, it didn't last very long, so it wasn't probably as long as maybe it would be. But other than that, I thought it was a really, really good race. You had a lot of battles throughout, especially, we'll go into it, Hamlin versus Blaney. I thought that was a really good battle. I mean, for the most part, you had Hamlin with the short run car, then you had Blaney with the long run car. So it was always very interesting to see, during the race, what was going to, come out on top. You had Hamlin with the short run car, and there's a lot of cautions that could benefit that. Then you have Blaney. Oh, if we get to like 50, maybe 30, 50 laps, to end this thing, Blaney's going to come. Blaney's probably going to run away with it. Now, obviously, it didn't happen because Blaney had that pit road issue. And I think he came back to finish 11th, still on the lead lap. So that just shows you how good of a car Blaney had. It actually reminded.
I was just going to jump in real quick, Armani. I'll say this about Blaney real quick, and I'll let you finish. I think with experience, and Blaney's still a young guy. Blaney's very talented. He got his win earlier this year, so congratulations to him. But I think with experience, when he gets older and has a lot of seasons under his belt, he won't make that error again, because that error costed him that race. He would have won that race had he not made that error on pit road. And obviously that's not all his fault. I mean, it's a lot with the team and the pit crew and all that. But a Denny Hamlin is not going to make that error. A Martin Truex Jr., a Kyle Busch, they're not going to make that error because they have the experience. They have wins under their belt. So, congratulations to Blaney for a great race. I mean, two playoff points, but that would be my thing to add. So I'll let you finish.
Yeah, it reminded me the finish of how Blaney ended it, of Denny Hamlin back in 2019 at the Homestead race. It just showed you how good that car was, where if he got up front, because Hamlin, he had that issue. We'll touch back on that when we talk about our championship preview, but he had a great car. He obviously had that issue. He went a lap down. He still managed to finish 10th on the lead lap. So it had a lot of similarities, I believe. And it was also because it was very late in the race also. But obviously, we got to – going back to the whole sloppy thing, obviously we had the big one, when we got back to racing on Sunday. And we had the Rick Ware Civil War between James Davison and Cody Ware. I don't know what that was about.
Dude, that was wild. Look, there's something to be said about me maybe one day wanting to work in the NASCAR industry. Obviously, I love what I do now and talking to guys like you and doing my own show. But, I mean, there is something to be said about a guy that just doesn't have experience under his belt. I mean, some of these – I sometimes look at these stats and to see, a guy like him have 100-plus races and no top 10s in the Cup Series. You just wonder, and obviously it's situation based. But there was no need for him and his teammate going at each other. There just was no need for that.
Right. That was Rick Ware. I think we can make a whole episode of just how everything Rick Ware, just on this season alone. I mean, if we were going to go through Rick Ware's entire history, I'm pretty sure you can make it a feature-length movie. Or how long that'd be?
Yes.
So that's pretty much. So that was Martinsville. Like I said, I think we can all agree it was a pretty good race, though it did get sloppy at a lot of times. Obviously, pretty good battle to end it. And I do believe if we got a couple more laps, and Chase probably would have drove down Truex. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'll get into that. I'll move into what I think about Chase moving forward. But I do want to shout out two guys that absolutely got screwed. The first being my guy, and he's my guy, Ryan Preece. He had a great car. He had a fast car, a top 15 car, all race. He needed that. I mean, not all race, but, the majority of stage one. He needed those points. And he comes back he had a battery issue, goes 5 laps down, making his way back, and then finally gets in that wreck, and his car's up in flames. So that's one. And then your boy, Danny Suarez. I think he got screwed. I really did. I don't want to blame it on William Byron. He did. Suarez did. That's fine. If he thinks it, that's fine. But those two guys, they had good cars. They had good cars in the points standings right now, where points are hard to come by and you need every point with a lot of guys getting wins. They got screwed, man. They really did.
Yeah, Suarez wasn't even – I think he was running top 15, top 20 through most of the race. So, yeah, to see him get screwed over like that, it sucked. Especially, it doesn't help my prediction, obviously, which we'll get to later. Yes. Trackhouse making the playoffs. It doesn't help it, but I think they'll bounce back. We're going to Richmond. Suarez is pretty good at Richmond. So, We'll see what happens when that comes. So, that's Martinsville. Now, I want to move on to the championship picture.
Okay.
We're 8 races into the season, and I think we got an idea on who our favorites are going to be for the title. Now, granted, obviously, the playoff system, the Final Four, you really don't know who it's going to be. No one really had Logano as a championship favorite, and then he won Kansas, and then he locked himself in when no one really had him in the Final Four. So it can always change around. However, so I got 4 names. I don't know what names you got. You can list them off. But my 4 guys are Kyle Larson, Mark Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, and Joey Logano.
Okay. Yeah. I agree. All those guys are definitely in the consideration. If not, I would say probably at this point, Truex would be your favorite. If either he or Denny Hamlin. Obviously, Denny doesn't have a win, but he's leading the points standings by an absurd amount right now because of just consistency. So I made this pick on my show a couple weeks ago, and it's a dark horse, but I actually can really see it coming true, and it's Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch has had speed all season. And to me, there's 3 things you need to win a championship. You need speed. Kurt Busch and that car have it. Early in the season, I forget which race it was, he had a top 5 car, and he gets taken out by Denny on a restart, and that's his day. But he has speed. Experience, he's been here for a while. He's a former champion. And then just overall success. Like I said, he's had success. He's been at the top. He's been one of the best drivers for a long time now. And I think we saw possibly that it was his last season. He teased it in like a trailer. So I think he's going to get hot late, and he's going to make a run at it. So he genuinely is my pick to win.
That's a good pick, because you're right. Kurt Busch has definitely had speed. I believe that race you're talking about is Homestead.
Yes.
But he's definitely had speed. He just needs to put the finishes together.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really good dark horse pick. I don't know if I would necessarily pick him just because I think he's kind of so far down in the standings. Granted, we're at the standings now. It doesn't matter once we get to November.
Right.
But I don't know if I go as far as to say I could see him sneak into the top 10 in points. I don't know if I necessarily see him in the Final Four, but I definitely see your point.
Okay.
The main guy I want to talk about right now, though, is the guy leading the points, Denny Hamlin. He has had just an absurd way to just start the season. He doesn't have any wins, but he's got 7 top 5s and 7 top 10s. The only race he didn't finish inside the top 10, which I believe is Homestead, where he finished 11th. He's leading the points by 76 over his teammate Mark Truex Jr. Now, one thing I wanted to say is it's interesting because last year, around this time, everyone kind of agreed, okay, Harvick is the clear favorite. 2019, Kyle Busch. 2018, Harvick, Busch, Truex. Every year, it's always like, okay, you know who the favorite is. Mm-hmm. We're not really giving that same talk to Denny Hamlin. We're giving it to Larson. We're giving it to Truex. We're giving it to Logano, but we're not giving it to Denny Hamlin, is what I've been noticing. No one really talked about Hamlin until, obviously, this past weekend in Martinsville. But it's funny because, in a way, I think this helps Denny Hamlin. Now, let me explain why.
Okay.
What is one thing about Denny Hamlin that we know about Denny Hamlin? We call him a choke artist. He can't handle under pressure. We've seen the 2010, 2019, hell, even the Bristol dirt race. So when the pressure is on Hamlin, the general consensus is he doesn't rise to the occasion. I think because no one's really talking about Hamlin, it's taking the pressure off of Hamlin. So if you take the pressure off Hamlin, he probably has a better chance of succeeding more. And I'm of the opinion, listen, I think as crew chief Chris Gabehart, he's going to go down as an all-time great crew chief. He's going to be there with the Chad Knaus's, with the Kurt Shelmerdines. He is that kind of crew chief. 6 wins in his first season, 7 wins. This is the first time in his career that throughout 8 races, I believe he has less than either 2 or 3 wins. Chris Gabehart. So I always have said, as long as Chris Gabehart is Denny Hamlin's crew chief, Hamlin's going to win a championship. Hamlin will win a championship as long as that is his crew chief. Unless Hamlin doesn't win it this year and he retires. So what do you think about that? Do you think maybe because Hamlin has kind of flown under the radar pretty much this entire season, despite, when you actually look at it, it's kind of just crazy to think about. Do you think him flying under the radar can actually benefit him to maybe competing for the championship?
I do. I think that's an interesting point. It is. I mean, it's a sad reputation, but it is a reputation, and it's worth, it's worth that. It's worth noting that he has choked. He has not been able to. It's crazy to think that a driver as talented as Denny Hamlin, as successful as Denny Hamlin, winning 8+ races for at least 4 or 5 seasons. It's crazy to think he doesn't have a championship. It's crazy, but that is that's part of it. So to your point, him I think not winning and getting a little overlooked might help, but at the same time, you have to win. You still have to win, and I hope Denny can continue this success into October and September when it's going to matter the most. And I'm a believer that he will. But again, he's never won a championship. And in the playoff format, albeit, say what you want about what you think of it, you have to win. You have to win the final race. So he cannot have the pressure all season, and that's fine. And he'll have a good season. I mean, he had a great season last year. But when it matters most, you have to show up. My favorite receiver of all time just retired 2 days ago, Julian Edelman. And why people remember Edelman and why people even there's consideration for him making the Hall of Fame is because Julian Edelman stepped up in the biggest moments of the season. Denny Hamlin is a surefire Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest drivers that anybody has ever watched. And you and I are of similar age. Us growing up, we've watched Denny. He's one of the best we'll ever see. But he needs to get a championship. And this is the year. I mean, last year, look, he had a great run. But the consistency is there this year. This is the year he needs to win.
I see this year very similar to maybe what Kevin Harvick went through in 2015, where it's just where he has top 5s and top 10s like it's no tomorrow. His average finish sides, I believe, will be in the 7s or 8s, but the wins aren't necessarily there. I think Hamlin will probably get 3 to 4 wins throughout the season, just because I think this year is going to be so crazy. So you're going to see a lot more winners than usual. So it's obviously going to take wins away. I don't think we're going to see another 7-win driver this season like we did last year and the year prior.
Let me add real quick. I think what hurts Denny the most is Denny is a driver that probably you and I could say has had his best and most successful seasons the last 7 seasons, you could say. Obviously, he was good, when he came in. He was a very talented guy. But I think a lot of the fact that they did change the playoff format has hurt Denny. He was obviously not the regular season champion last year with points, but he was second, just right behind Harvick. And then this year it's the same thing. I think if they had the format like they did back in the early 2000s, where it was just overall points, Denny would win the championship, and he might have a couple. But that's not the case. That's not the case. And I don't care what people say about, Chase Elliott wasn't warranted this championship. This guy wasn't warranted that. It doesn't matter. You know how to win. You have to win the last race, and that's what Denny has to do.
Who do you think is Denny Hamlin's biggest threat for the championship?
Honestly, it's himself. It really is. He is that talented. His car is that good. His team is that good. You just mentioned his crew chief. We know his pit crew is always on each week. He's talented. So I think the biggest threat to Denny Hamlin is Denny Hamlin. He needs to get over the jitters. Something happens when he gets at Phoenix, at Homestead, in that final race. Something happens there where the moment gets too big for him. And that's, to me, if you want me to give you a driver, I would say probably Chase Elliott, just because we've seen him win in big clutch situations. So I would say that's probably his biggest threat down the stretch. But the real threat to Denny is himself.
That's a very interesting answer, and I actually agree with that. I'd say his biggest threat is, I mean, the easy one to say is Kyle Larson, just because the amount of speed that he has had is just ridiculous. Even though he doesn't, I don't think he has as many laps led as Hamlin, but just the amount of speed that he's had is just crazy. Even though none of those two are my championship pick, I'm pretty sure I said it before, but my championship pick is actually Truex, and he won this week at Martinsville, so that helps my case. So that's what we got, going on, in terms of like what we think the championship preview is. Speaking of preview, now we're going to move on to Richmond. So what I think we can expect from Richmond is, I believe I said it during the Vegas episode, where I think it's going to be Penske versus Hendrick. This time, I think it's going to be Penske versus JGR. We've seen with Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Truex, Logano, all of them being up front, and I think we're going to see the same thing again.
Yeah, so this is where we can talk your boy Suarez, because there's a couple tracks where Suarez will have a good shot to win. But this is the shot. I mean, you are a Suarez fan. I know that. I like that about you, to be honest. I like how much you root for this guy. This is his shot, man. He's going to have a very good chance to get a good result. Now, obviously, a lot comes into winning a race, but he has a legitimate shot to compete. But going on I've got the odds up, and Martin is the favorite, JGR car at 7-2. Denny and Kyle Busch right behind him, JGR cars. And then right after that, it's Brad and Joey as the next two. That's odds to win. So we do expect it to be JGR Penske. So if you want me to give you a pick, I actually think Chase Elliott is going to get his first win at Richmond. He has never won, but he's had a couple second places, plenty of top fives. I think he carries over his momentum from last race. He's looked good all season, besides that Atlanta race where he got bumped early and then couldn't finish the day. So to me, I think Chase finishes on top, actually.
That's a pretty good pick. I think we're also going to see, the typical Richmond long green flag runs strung out. But because it's going to be in the daytime, I think you're going to see a little more action, just because the track is going to be a lot hotter. So it's going to be a lot more slick. You're going to see drivers, moving up and down all over the place, as opposed to the nighttime where they're kind of just, glued to the bottom. My pick is a guy I was just propping over before, Denny Hamlin. In the last 8 Richmond races, he's had 6 top 5, including the win in 2016 in the fall. So Denny Hamlin is my pick to win the Richmond race. I believe it's the Toyota Owners 400, I believe is what it's called this year.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So that's a good pick. I can definitely see that happening. I was going to say, either Denny carrying over his momentum or Chase, but I just think Chase is due more than Denny. What do you think of Kyle Busch this week? What do you think he'll finish?
I think he'll finish top 5. I think that team is finally starting, finally pick up the pace. They're starting to have that top 10, top 5 speed again. So I think he will have a top 5 finish. Is obviously one of his best tracks. He swept the Richmond races back in 2018. For my guy Suarez, I see him getting a top 10. He's going to have to come from deep in the field just because, of how, the order is. But I think he will work his way up. He's done it before in the past. I believe he did at Atlanta, where he had to work his way from the back to the front like 1,000,001 times. So he's going to do it again. I think he'll get a top 10. He'll get those valuable points. I don't necessarily think a top 5. I just think there's going to be better drivers in the top 5 and better cars. So, yeah. So Suarez, I think, will finish top 10. Denny, I think, will win. Like I said, I think it's going to be Penske versus JGR. So you're going to have the Blaine. Well, not the Blaney's. Blaine will be lucky to get a top 20.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's probably the JGR and Penske are the two that will be at the top.
So moving on from Richmond, we're going to get into our little game of the night. So pretty much for the past couple weeks, it's pretty much been, as I like to call it, the short track swing. We had Bristol, granted it was a dirt track, but it's still a short track. We have Martinsville, and now we're heading on to Richmond before we go to Talladega. So what I thought of is, obviously, the big story from, a couple months ago, they're turning Auto Club into a short track. And so one of the things was, why don't we turn this track into a short track? Why don't we turn this into a short track? So one thing is, so we're going to come up with a couple of those right now. So me and you are going to list off the top 3 tracks we think should be turned into a short track. I don't know your list. You don't know mine. I know you have a wild card in there. I know I got a wild card in mine. So without further delay, let's get into it. So you'll list off your names, and then I'll list off mine. So, and really there's no particular order on which one we'll be doing. You kind of just name them off. So let's start this.
All right. So yeah, you threw this at me, and I was very excited to just do this because, I mean, this is a wild thing to think about, but it's a fun thing to think about. So my first one, and I'll rename it for you, the Tiny Tricky Triangle. So if we can somehow make Pocono like a Richmond, like a 3/4 mile track, it will. So the problem that people have with Pocono, and it's I would agree, is that there's a lot of single file racing, because it's sort of made like an IndyCar track, if you will. So I think if you make Pocono a short track, you have to keep Pocono, first of all. We need both. But if you make like a triangle-esque short track, I think it would be crazy racing. So that's my first. I don't know what you think. Can I get your thoughts on that?
That is interesting. Like, I want Pocono is not on my list. I think Pocono is too unique. The racing has been very lackluster so recently, but I think that's also a lot to do with the current rules package. I think once we get the next gen car, we might see an improvement because Pocono, like I said, it's so unique of a track.
Mm-hmm.
As much as it sucks, I kind of want it to stay the way it is just because of how unique. You don't have tracks like Pocono anymore, especially because they're starting to get rid of these big tracks, your super speedways. I kind of want, you want to keep as many around as possible because, we're starting to lose them.
Okay.
My number one, but that is I don't know what a short track triangle with that racing would. I'm trying to imagine how that racing would be like. Because I'm trying to imagine literally Pocono with only one banked corner and then 2 corners that are no bank. I'm trying to imagine what that would be like.
It's hard to imagine, but it's something.
It's intriguing. If someone ever makes another short track, make it into a triangle. I want to see what that kind of racing would be like. That would be just a wild card and a half.
Preach.
I'll get my 2 boring tracks out of the way. So my first one, Texas. I mean, there's really no explanation. Texas, they ruined it with the repave. It's terrible. There's no tire fall off. Even with any package you have at Texas, the racing, it sucks. It's terrible. So just turn it to a short track. Another thing I put into thought in this is if the facility had maybe short tracks around the area or in the facility. So your Las Vegas has the bull ring, or Charlotte, I believe, has a short track in it also, or like Daytona, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So Texas, I don't think they have a short track in the area or, obviously in the facility. Someone tell me if I'm wrong, but Texas, there's really no explanation.
Okay. All right. So, we'll go. Is that good? We'll go 3-3-2-2-1-1.
Yes.
All right. So my second one is sort of kind of what you said. And I'm biased because I'm from the New England area. Pretty much everybody's least favorite track is New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and it's never really an interesting race. They call it the Magic Mile. There's not much magic to it, but I'm being honest. So I'm going to go in New Hampshire Motor Speedway. I know it's only a mile, but it's half a mile. I think it would just provide a better race in general. I think the last 4 New Hampshire races. New Hampshire's so bad they're down to giving it. That it's on its way out. I don't know what else to say other than I want New Hampshire to get a little more.
You see, the funny thing about me is I consider tracks that are a mile in length short tracks. So I call Dover a short track. I call Phoenix a short track. I call New Hampshire a short track. And I like New Hampshire. I'm I like the racing there. I thought the racing there has been pretty decent, especially these past few years. You got 2018 with Harvick's bumper run. I thought 2019 was a good race. I thought last year's race was pretty good. So, but I can see your point. I definitely do think that New Hampshire, it feels like it should be a short track, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. And my number 2 pick is Atlanta Motor Speedway.
I'd like that.
For the main reason of it's going to have to get repaved, and when it repaves, we're going to have the same problem that we had with Kansas, Texas, Michigan, all these tracks that need to be repaved. The racing is going to be terrible. So just do what you're going to do with Auto Club. Just turn it to a short track. And in that sense, you can honestly, because you shorten the facility down, you can use that extra land to maybe build more, business corporate, maybe like you talk about the casino or, the amusement park they're paying to build, around Atlanta. If you build, shrink it to a short track, you potentially have more room to, be more flexible to do what you want to do around Atlanta.
Yeah, that's a good one. Atlanta gets a lot of hate for, the fact that they've needed that repay for a while. I still think Atlanta puts on a pretty good show, to be honest. I thought the race this year was pretty good, but I don't know. So I do like. So my final, again, it's this one's out of the box. I want a short road course. Yes, it's possible. First of all, so there's a place that in the IMSA that races at Lime Rock Park in Lakeville, Connecticut, and it's under a mile and a half, which you would consider on the series now. So, Monaco has a 2-miler on the F1 circuit. I think if something, I'm sure there is a road course out there. A mile is a big amount of space. It's a giant unit of measurement. So if you can get a mile short track or a mile road course, that would be amazing. Just think of that. I mean, come on, right? I'm more interested just to see how fast the lap times would be. We don't have a road course where the lap times are under a minute. So that'd actually be something pretty interesting. What track would you replace that track to make it? Oh man. I mean, you could get rid of one of the Texas races. They've got Texas still has 2, correct?
They have one points paying race, but they have the All-Star race.
Oh, okay. All right. So I don't know.
Just get rid of the regular Texas race. No one cares about Texas.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We'll do that. And like I said, I would put it to start this place in Connecticut that gets an IMSA race. Lime Rock Park.
It's funny you mentioned road courses because my number 3 is a road course. I would scrap Sonoma and turn it to a short track.
Okay. Dude, I need more.
So let me explain why. Sonoma's arguably the worst road course on the schedule. I mean, it still puts on a pretty damn good show, but it's arguably the worst road course on the schedule, especially since they added the carousel. I think it actually hurt the racing. And we have too many road courses on the schedule. I think the Daytona road course is going to become a permanent fixer. We've already done it this year. We did it last year. I think it's going to be permanent going to 2022 and beyond. Obviously, we got the IMS. You're going to want to stay in Indianapolis. COTA is a state-of-the-art facility. Road America, it's basically built for stock cars. So Sonoma's just kind of that one outlier where I feel like if no one looked, if that race were to get removed, then I don't think, a lot of people would complain too much compared to like a Watkins Glen or the Roval or COTA or et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't think about the idea of maybe turning into a short road course, but now that you mention it, I wouldn't be opposed to Sonoma becoming a short road course or just like another half-mile short track either.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree with you. First of all, there's way too many road courses on this year. However, with that being said, I'm very excited for COTA. I think that's going to be.
I am too.
That's going to be an amazing race. Those who are F1 fans, which I know you are, that's right up any F1 fans alley. So I agree. Sonoma by far is the worst. I'm also not a fan of Road America, but that's besides the point. I think Sonoma does need to either go or your idea is good. I like it.
So that was our fun little game. Top 3 tracks. We would turn it to short tracks. I believe that's everything we got for today, unless you have anything you want to say.
I mean, all I could say is I appreciate you having me on, and I'll end with this, right? So you and I have had this back and forth going about Trackhouse for a while. I came in on I guess to start the wrong side of the deal. I didn't see Daniel Suarez getting success, having success, making the playoffs. I am now changing my opinion on NASCAR by the numbers. Armani, I'm going to come to your side. You called it the dark side. I'm going to come to your side. I am for Trackhouse making the playoffs, and I think it happens. I think he's going to be the 16th car to get in.
Good. Welcome to the dark side, aka my whack-ass predictions.
But at the same time, like I said, whatever happens when the playoffs come, you're going to come back on the show. So,
we're discussing.
I'm going to still take the credit if he doesn't make it. I'm going to still take the credit that I had to win.
You're going to go back to you're going to go back to our first show, and you're going to be like, oh, you see, I said it then. So he didn't make the playoffs. I was right.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
What sounds more crazy? Trackhouse making which of my predictions sounds the most crazy? I'm going to give you a couple of them.
Yeah.
Trackhouse making the playoffs. John Hunter Nemechek making the playoffs last year, or Ryan Newman taking over the 48.
Well, Newman taking over the 48 had some that had some the analysis behind it. John Hunter Nemechek making the playoffs as a rookie in a front row motorsports car. I mean, I don't know where that comes from. I would have probably punted that theory out the window. But first of all, I love John Hunter Nemechek. I would say right now he's my favorite in the truck series, and I'm rooting for him to get a championship. But I would say that's your craziest by a long shot. And then I would put Suarez in the middle because I think Newman to the 48 was a valid, option or thing that would have happened. But I think they made the right move putting Bowman in that car and adding Larson to a very stacked lineup.
Right. Like I said, my reason for Newman to the 48 was pretty much you put Newman in the 48 for about a year or two. You let Gragson develop, maybe he goes to JTG or stays in the Xfinity Series. So when he's ready to go to HMS, Newman retires, and then they put Gragson in. Nemechek to the playoffs, that was kind of like I needed to pull something out of my ass, and that's what I did. I said the entire year, wait for the July Daytona race. And I'm pretty sure John Hunter Nemechek was leading that. No, it was Talladega where John Hunter Nemechek almost won that race if Blaney just didn't body slam him. If that would have happened, I think I'd still be getting a hangover from the party I just knowing John Hunter Nemechek made the playoffs, and I just pulled that out of my ass and it worked.
I love it. I love the enthusiasm. I don't like the analysis behind it, but even with that being said, there's a front row motorsports car in the playoffs right now, so anything's possible.
Exactly. It's not the first time they've been in the playoffs either.
Yeah, exactly. So,
that 34 car's got some magic. What's the 38 car going to win a race?
Oh, geez, that we could. You and I could have a whole show on covering the 38 car this year, the 51 car. The Rick Ware cars, the 38 car. And I shouldn't say that because I do feel bad for Alfredo and the start he's had. He's from my area in New England, so I want to root for him. But the stuff you do on the track, people see it. It goes on social media, and that's a roast fest, if you will.
Yeah.
So.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our show tonight. Again, Johnny on the track. Appreciate it, my man, for coming on the show.
Thank you. Have me back anytime. I'm willing to do it.
Go check out his stuff. His Twitter handle is in your name. What is it? @JOTT_podcast.
Yep, that's right.
Like I said, go check out the show, Johnny on the Track. Great show. You guys will love it. Obviously, you can find me at Motor Minister on Twitter. And thank you guys for tuning into this show, NASCAR by the Numbers, and we'll see you next week.